I start my business. 3 months into it, I start my divorce. 3 months later, I have a guy die on one of my jobs.
Oh, my gosh.
This is 2007. It takes 18 months, and it cost about $1 million to get divorced, and I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. So everything I made.
And all the while, now it's 2008, great time for construction, right? Especially
right now, like it's going good, and then all of a sudden I get divorced in August of 2008. I got a payout, and the economy just slides right off a cliff.
And welcome to the One Shot Podcast. So this is take 2 because take 1 was gold, but we got cut off short. So we've got Greg Gordon here from Gordon Highlander, owner, founder of one of the premier construction companies here in the DFW area and then all over Texas. You guys have expanded your footprint, but really excited. We do, as our company, and we talk about our day jobs all the time, we do a lot of work with Gordon Highlander, and they have been an incredible partner to us. And I got to actually, I got to know you a little bit through your team first, which immense amounts of respect just through your team. And that's what I think is really a true reflection of leadership is, okay, what does your team say about you? How do they interact? What do they think about the culture of the company? But then you came in and spoke to our company. And just the authenticity, the transparency, I immediately, looked at Darren and Ben and I was like, we got to have them on. Like, we got to talk through this. Not only do you have an incredible story leading up to, where you're at today, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but you're also in an industry that has the same, right? That has a lot of ups and downs. It's cyclical. And there's times when it's really, really bad. And then when it's good, all these new companies are popping up like weeds, but do they have the roots to really sustain through those hard times? And people are really looking around right now, like, what are the immediate times to come? So, we wanted to expand off of our last conversation because, again, it was so good. And we're just super grateful that you're taking the time out of your day to come and just hang out with us.
I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah, happy to have you.
Yeah.
So, let's go back. Who's Greg? What's your upbringing? What was it like growing up?
Yeah.
And how did you ultimately create this project? And it's not your greatest accomplishment, right? It's probably the most visible to the outside eye.
Sure.
But we'll talk about some other great accomplishments that you've had. But take us to the beginning.
The journey. It's a ride I'm still on, right?
That's right.
Well, I was born into a Catholic family in Baltimore, Maryland. So raised on the East Coast. My dad worked in a family business, and he saw an opportunity here in Dallas to work for Trammell Crow Company. And so that's a big part of my story. I can attribute a lot of my success to having a father with a spotless reputation in the marketplace. That helped a lot.
Yeah.
When I moved to Texas, I took my lacrosse stick down to the park to go find some people to play lacrosse with, and
Crickets.
I felt like I was tricked by my parents, No one knew what lacrosse was, but fast forward.
Was it you that brought it to Dallas? Because that's a thing in Dallas.
Yeah.
Now.
It is now.
That was you?
That was my era,
down.
definitely. We moved to Plano, and I had a hard time adjusting from Baltimore to Plano. That was a big adjustment. I called it an ant farm for yuppies. It just would look very different, and no one was from there, and it just didn't have those old roots that Baltimore had. And so I ended up going to an all-boys Catholic high school here, Jesuit, and I think in a way that's where the good part of my story kind of begins in my maturation as a young man and being imprinted in the Ignatian doctrine and learning about their teaching and building a way. We had a motto, we still do, the Jesuit motto is to be a man for others. And so I was, 14 years old and learning about community service and living a life for others. I think that like I called it an imprint. I had to kind of get lost before I was found again. And once I was found, I realized how much that was a big part of my my spirit.
Yeah, it's hard at that age, right? The maturity that you have to recognize, okay, how much this is actually, imprinting characteristics into me and imprinting personality traits and the importance of those. Because it's kind of like, it's not very cool. I don't want to go hang out with my buddies. I want to play sports. I want to chase girls.
Yeah.
Like that's what the maturity level drives you to.
Yeah.
I
was going to ask, how receptive of that were you? I mean, it sounds like it was a school thing, so maybe all your friends were doing it anyway. But at 14, how receptive are you to looking out for others?
I was pushing against Plano, and then I got to Jesuit, and then I kind of pushed against Jesuit, and then sophomore year came, and I was just certain I needed to get back to Plano because all my buddies were having a lot of fun, and I was going to a school that didn't have girls, and so, but like my junior year, that's when things really started to click, and then senior year was really special. And that senior year, there was some younger brothers that came from Baltimore, the Tenervins, and they got the first lacrosse club started at Jesuit. So that would have been around 91. So there is a moment in time there. Shortly after that, lacrosse became real and hockey became real.
Yeah.
And now the amount of sports that they offer is just incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Another, client, friend in the market, they moved from California, but they were East Coast before.
Okay.
And his kids play hockey. And they came, and I was blown away. Being from California, Central California, hockey's not that big of a deal there. But to understand that how big of a presence hockey is in Dallas is surprising. But then lacrosse, I mean, I can't tell you how many friends' kids play lacrosse. It's like, Dallas?
Yep.
Yeah, I knew lacrosse. I'm learning right now that hockey's a big thing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize hockey was a big thing. We're talking full ice hockey, the whole thing.
Full ice hockey.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. It's a big deal.
Had no idea.
You're looking at the man that started it.
Rugby's another one.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm learning
Up in
so much.
Salina, right? Salina is a bunch of country bumpkins, and I can say that because I live up there, right? But a bunch of country folk up there. And there's literally, we'll finish my son's practice, and there's 3 rugby teams,
Really?
like standing on the sidelines waiting for us to finish, like to walk onto the field.
Yeah.
I have not seen
like
that at
kids
all in
from
Prosper.
6 to 18 all on these clubs. So yeah, it's diversified.
Yeah, there you go.
Then you go to Plano, now cricket, Frisco and Plano cricket, which I didn't realize is the second largest sport in the world.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Insane. And that's now big in DFW.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned your dad and how great he was in the marketplace. What was he like as a leader in the home? What kind of father was he?
So my dad, golly, he really believed in education. He started off as a teacher with a history degree, got into the family business, went back to school when I was a kid to become an architect. When I was in high school, he ended up getting his master's from UTD, and so my dad is just he's hungry. He's hungry for learning. And so that was awesome. I mean, talk about imprinting, he'd come home. I think I talked about this on the previous podcast, but, he'd say, like, son, what do you think the greatest pen in the world is, Is it a Mont Blanc or is it a Bic? And, trick questions. And he'd say, it depends on what the client says. And so just these concepts, left brain or right brain. What about using your whole brain? And I think I get my gift of influence from my dad.
Yeah.
I think one of the most powerful things that you can do as a leader is believe in your people. And that's more than just your words. It's
Wait, I can't just talk about it. I actually have to be about it. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that pick up on what the world says, and then you can feel it when people really believe in you, right? And so that's the greatest gift that I received, him believing in me.
Absolutely.
So oftentimes, even when I started my company, he'd say, like, son, you're going to build a legacy business. And then I'd go to my small groups and I'd say, what do you think the word legacy means? Just trying to figure out, what's my dad talking about?
See, and that's powerful. And I'm taking this into my perspective as a dad and as a child, to really get the sense that my dad believes in me and doesn't expect of me. And I think about me and my kids, and do I have expectations for my kids? How to behave, how to conduct themselves, how to perform at school, how to perform at, and I'm not sure that I've done a good job as a dad making sure they know that I believe in them. That's powerful. That's powerful to like hear from someone that felt that. And I'm just like, now, okay, what am I putting off to my kids?
Right.
And I've just never thought of that. Do my kids know? I know they know that I love them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference between loving them and believing in them.
Yeah, it's kind of a shift between the rules and just the spirit or how the soul operates, right?
Yeah. But you know what? The struggle for me right now is I had all these grand plans in my head about how I was going to raise my kids. Yeah. And, we're going to be super structured. They're going to eat nothing but organic. It's going to be like this great. But then you get into the mix, into the fire, and all of a sudden the bullets are really flying.
Yeah.
And you forget a lot of this stuff. Yeah. And it becomes almost like a survival mode. And you have to really be super conscious about instilling those things you're talking about, Tyler, those expectations, those principles that you want to pass along. Because it's very easy, Greg, you know this better than us. It's very easy just to fall in the routine of survival.
Yeah.
As opposed to really bringing up your children and how they're supposed to be brought up.
Or just getting stuck in your own logic and theology and thinking that it's your job to teach all this. Instead of show up and be there and help them figure it out.
That's wisdom.
Right?
That's really good.
Yeah, and dude, think about how to describe the markings of wisdom. Personally, they show up in my life when I'm humbled.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to really think about how humility is a mark of wisdom, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so I just remember some of these arguments with my dad when I was trying to get on my own feet, and my dad would say, son, I've never done this before.
Huh.
I
he would say that to you.
Wow. Yeah, neither have I, Dad.
What a moment, though, right?
You don't really understand until you're a parent and you're dealing with your own 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And it's just hard. I left here last time because my son had wrecked the car, and like shortly after that, they had their districts, regionals, and state tournament in wrestling, and we got Omicron, and my boys peaked, and then they fell flat at the end of their season. And I wanted to take them to state because I felt like next year, their senior year, it'd be very helpful if they had already seen it and been there, And then the gentle hand of my wife comes in. So she goes, babe, not everything has to be a life learning lesson, Yeah. She goes, they're tired. Yeah. I go, what are you thinking? She goes, why don't you go skiing next weekend? So I'm like, oh, okay. Just hard. I want so much for them, but it's just so easy to screw it up with my wants for them.
Gosh, I love the idea of wisdom that you brought up, right? The humility may be counterintuitive to some people when it comes to wisdom, but I think that's what wisdom is admitting when you don't know something, admitting when you need help. And I think of with your boys and having that conversation and recognizing like, I don't have to have all the answers for them. I don't have to move every single chess piece of their life for them because then I'm doing a disservice to them. But just saying, hey, man, it's a bummer situation that we're in, but guess what?
Yeah.
I see that you're tired. Let's go just be together and let's just put some joy back into your life. And that's a lot, because today our culture says wisdom is being the loudest and having information, putting it out there and just saying things, right? So that people think that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But there's just such a lack of it. And we're going to be talking about this here going in a couple weeks, but just the idea and concept of wisdom and how there's such a lack of it these days. And what you're talking about right now is that, and you got from your dad.
Yeah.
So talk through, okay, so Jesuit, but then you go from Jesuit, talk from there, because there's times, and I want to hear how your interactions with your dad and parents were through times that maybe weren't as smooth as, hey, I'm a stud on the team. I'm doing things good. So talk us through that next phase of life.
It's kind of funny. In 91, I graduate. I was the student body president, Jesuit, and just loved it. And I made a mistake in the college search. I thought that schools that were rich in tradition shared similar philosophies, and I went from this kind of what I have come to know is a little bit more of a liberal approach to just loving people and meeting them where they're at and being for them, to Texas A&M, which some of my best friends in life have graduated from there, and I've fallen in love with, but it wasn't a fit for me then.
Yeah.
And so 91 grunge rock came out, Nirvana had their album, and all of a sudden I just wanted to be liberated and kind of bite into the marrow of life. And so I really kind of was rebellious and kind of pushed back against going to college, and my parents were trying to keep me in the game, and so there was a lot of tension there. I picked a school in Boston, Massachusetts that was previously an all-girls school, so I could just go as far away as I could. And the last little try was you go to Austin College and get back into UT, and this was like the 5th school. And I picked like an applied science degree for art metals at the time. I wanted to be a metal sculptor. I was playing drums, and it was music and expression and all this stuff. And so when I failed out of my 5th college, my dad said, you're going to have to pay for this.
Yeah.
And I regret this, man, but I told him, fuck you, man. I don't need this shit anymore. My dad actually refers to that time as when he knew that I was going to be okay. And then he said, but son, I always worried that you wouldn't live up to your potential. And now he says, look at you.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so at that time he knew I've got to cut him loose and let him find his own path.
Yeah.
Instead of necessarily, okay, hey, are you going to get back into school? Are you going to class? Are you doing this? They needed Greg to figure out Greg's path at that point.
I think they just knew it wasn't going to work. No other way.
Was there any fear in your mind taking that path? Because as Tyler and I were growing up, as you were growing up, the safe, quote unquote, safe path was you go to high school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get good grades, you get a great job at a school.
Right.
Was there any fear on your path or on your behalf that you were thinking, well, I'm not really going the traditional route? What was your mentality at that point?
It's hard to say. I know that I've always had an abundance of courage, and maybe like the guy in Free Solo, like there's something wrong. Like,
Alex Honnold.
I took a long road trip, went all the way across the country, camped my way all the way to Alaska, took a job in Alaska and lived up there for 8 months.
Oh, wow.
Got on the fishing boat when the season was over and came back through the Inside Passage to Tacoma, and I got back to Texas and auditioned to play drums in a punk rock band, and my dad said, hey, son, I know you've got the gift of gab and you love the arts and everything. What would you think about working for a general contractor? And so I didn't really understand. I thought of construction as like road construction.
Yeah.
I just had these ideas in my head. And he just said, I think you have the ability to visualize and lead, and that would be really a good fit for construction. And so I got into the punk rock band, the Power Squid.
The Power Squid.
The Power Squid.
Yes. Shout out to my buddies. Come on. Goose. Hey, Goose, what's up?
You have any cassettes
Brian,
or CDs that are
I got
still
some CDs. Oh,
yes.
yes.
All right.
Of course.
Oh, man.
Those are real things, And so I tell people, like, that was the first decision I made kind of to get back into a good decision rhythm.
Okay.
And then I just decided, you know what? My friends were graduating college, and they were talking about how much money they were making and all this, and I took a $4.25 an hour job 25 years ago. And I just had something happen then where I just decided, you know what? I'm going to quit changing my mind about my career and just jam my flag into the ground.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Was it a moment that made you think that, or just a string of moments that over time you thought, I'm going to stick my or was it, did something happen?
Yeah.
Where I'm going to plant my flag here?
Good question, man.
Thank you.
You're asking great questions. Close. It was more like all that courage and kind of just the lack of development in the frontal lobe led to me chasing all the worldly things all over the place. And then I just realized the grass isn't always greener, And that pursuit, that idyllic kind of like pursuit of the worldly things wasn't going to ever really kind of add up.
Right. And how old were you at this time?
So this would have been 97, and I was 23, 24 years old.
For you to have that realization at 23, 20, I think I just discovered that yesterday, maybe at 34, about the grass not being always greener. So that's pretty impressive that at 23, 24, you had that realization.
It sounds like you did a lot of living.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, from 91 until then.
Yeah, there wasn't, college just was like a launch pad. I was a rocket, and I was just out in the world, just consuming.
Yeah. I think for that, and every one of us struggles with that or is struggling with that. And thinking that, hey, we're going to put our hope, we're going to put our faith, we're going to put our happiness and joy in the hands of things that have zero foundation, right? They can be taken away at any point. But to realize that at a young age, because I mean, there's still things that I'm like, oh no, when I get that, when I get there, or if I can do that, then I will.
Oh yeah.
So
that mental calculator's always working, man. The ego's always in control of that. Like, what's your number? What is this, that, and I go, man, I made $4.25 an hour, and I've made a lot more than that recently. Yeah. And I don't care if you misplace your identity in any of that, it won't never add up, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder, and I'm just thinking out loud, I wonder, to me, the pursuit is more fun than the destination.
Yeah.
And so I think I get caught in that cycle of constant pursuit because that feels more fun.
Oh, yes.
Than the steady ease of sticking with something. Because my backstory is a little bit like what you're saying. I would constantly start things, but then I would quit. I'd get emotional about it, or it wasn't working out the way I wanted.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it ties back to this desire for the pursuit as opposed to the
Well, I think the new pursuit, right? The exciting pursuit, something that's different, right? Something that's novel. And we're always searching for novelties, but I think the key is to find the joy and happiness, right, in the mundane, in the repetition, in the discipline, and that's what it's hard because like we want something, but we don't want the discipline of it. If we can find the joy in that, hey, look, I'm going to take a job for $4.50 an hour, and I'm just going to continue grinding. I'm going to continue learning. I'm going to continue working. Then if I can enjoy that, then the journey to being owner and CEO of a company, right? That's the fun part.
Yeah.
The fun part is getting there, right? And then I can enjoy all the benefits at that point when I can take my kids skiing.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I want to go back to what the picture you were painting, because I think we think it's one or the other, and it's actually both. And so what I've learned is that pursuit that you're talking about, the pursuit of excellence, it's always just out of my reach, right? But I believe we're called to the pursuit of excellence. And when I try to explain eternity to people, that's the very picture that I want them to see. Eternity is always just out of our reach by God's design. Yeah. But it doesn't mean you don't stop reaching.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what you realize in the journey is those superficial things, the idolatry that you put in what you think you're reaching for never really add up enough.
Yeah, I think for me, my perspective changes. When I accomplished that goal, I realized, well, that wasn't as fulfilling or as challenging or as whatever word you want to choose there as I thought it was going to be. So now I do got to reach for the next thing.
Yes.
Because I'm not settled here. So you're right. It is a constant pursuit of excellence because excellence changes. Once you hit this one level, well, now excellence looks different for me.
Yeah.
Because I've already reached. But you're right. You never really reach a true level. It's a constant just grabbing for it.
The other thing is you can't ever really understand completely your mindset right now. You actually have to get to the next place to understand what your mindset was that got you there.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of wonderful examples of this. You know, I'm reading this wonderful book right now called Falling Upwards by Richard Rohr, and it's about second half of life.
I'm going to write that down.
And he says, the problem with the great philosophers and Jesus is they actually were so spiritually mature that it became a threat to the fabric of society. And you kind of can see how that works. We were talking about this earlier. Part of what hurts the pursuit of excellence is fear. And I think as men, we really struggle with it. Fear and control are like two different sides of the same coin, and we're providers. We're kind of made that way, right? Versus the coin of love and abundance. And it's crazy. It's funny. The recipes change just a little bit, and they always have the same ingredients. It's just knowing what to put at the top makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, fear is an interesting emotion because it can drive you toward action or it can deter you from action. And it's amazing how powerful it is either way. I don't know. It's just it's an interesting.
Yeah, and I want to go back a little bit to the drive for excellence too, because I think that looks different for every person. I think I 100% agree with you. I think we're called to reach for that, whatever that is in your life. Some people it may be growing an organization. For some people, it may be serving the community. For some people, it may be sticking around your family. For some people, so it looks very different because, I think, our audience is a wide range, right? And so it's some people that, hey, they're a picker and a packer at a warehouse, right? And what does excellence look like to them in their family situation? And some are high school athletes, maybe, a young lady, a young woman that plays volleyball, right? What does excellence look like to her and her family dynamic? And it looks different. I think just defining excellence, and his question for you, what definition can you think of? And I know you're on the spot, but that can be broadly approached to that. Yeah. Because again, like I said, it could be a father that doesn't want to stick around, but he sticks around. That's excellence. And he shows up for his family and he shows up to work every single day. That may be excellence, right? It may be that mom that is at home but chooses not to take that medication that day, right? The prescription whatever the situation may be.
Sure.
But what is it? What do you think? Okay, hey, look, what is that definition of drive for excellence?
I think of it as like a state of mind. It's a mindset or an attitude. It's not a specific thing like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And so I just think the most important thing for me has been having a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And so it just allows you to embrace all the things that get put in your path.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to learn here? Why did that happen? Hey, why am I doing that again? Why am I having to apologize for the same excuse? I think the growth mindset just allows you to take a realistic look at the pursuit of excellence or yourself or problems, obstacles.
I think, I totally agree. And you kind of bring up, and it's in line with that emotional intelligence, having some self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Self-correction, if you were to look at athletes, and I'll just use football because that's the life that I lived, was, hey, I had to go self-correct. I had to watch film of myself. I spent 85% of my time watching film of myself as opposed to watching film of the other team because it's more about self-correction, self-realization of, okay, what can I do? What can I do? What can I fix? What can I not fix?
Yeah.
And so I think as an individual is part of that strive for greatness is having that introspective conversation, like, hey, who am I?
Yeah.
Okay, what are the issues that I'm having? When am I hurting people? What am I doing? How can I be better? And like you said, always growing. I think that's really, really important. And whatever that looks like, because again, it may be, and I'm not going to name a job because I don't want to put anything down, but like it may be just being in a very servant-driven position where you're reporting and serving other people all the time and not necessarily a leader. So
I want to take a quick break and thank our partners, Sleep Number, and highlight a couple things they're doing. Guys, these Sleep Number beds are unreal. The technology that they've created, the feedback that it gives you on your sleep. I've got the app opened up right here. They tell you things like your heart rate variability, your breathing rate, all these type metrics and feedback to give you so that you can improve your quality of sleep. They're all over the place. You can go and check yourself out, a Sleep Number store, wherever you live. Go to sleepnumber.com as well. They've got great resources on there. We just talked about this not too long ago. They have a whole blog section, all these articles, things that you can improve your health. Sleep Number is definitely changing the game when it comes to bedding. So get yourself to Sleep Number, get yourself to sleepnumber.com, and check them out. Now back to the episode.
You start this, I want to go back to your journey, and I want to, so started at a job at $4.50 an hour in the construction industry.
Yes.
So where did that go, and where did that lead you to, being consistent in that job?
Just a little quick plug. Charlie Henderson, CD Henderson was the company that I went to work for, and Charlie's in his 70s now, and I actually had him come to the office recently, and we did a little just me expressing my gratitude for him giving me a shot and being a part of my start. But I spent 2.5 years in the field, and then a guy that my dad had mentored and brought into the business started his own interior finish-out firm, and I was his first employee. So that was another thing that I benefited greatly from. Although I don't have much of a relationship with Rob Moody, he was a great teacher, and I learned a lot about how to be a great builder from him.
So you would go to that company, you're employee number one.
Yep.
Probably took on a lot of responsibility that you hadn't maybe necessarily had being in the field.
I went from being a foreman to a superintendent, so that was a big jump.
Yeah.
And then I started, after I learned how to be a superintendent, I started doing project management, and then when I got up into the marketplace, I started to realize, hey, these are my dad's buddies. And so, I tell people I got something better than a golden spoon. I got a dad with a great reputation in the marketplace. And so that opened doors for me. Hey, I'm Doug Gordon's son. Holy mackerel, I love Doug. And so my dad loves to say, but he had to go deliver. And that's the real hard part about being a contractor. Yeah. It's a results-driven business, right? 100%. Results is our fifth core value, but we're real careful in making sure that we organize them the right way. The world wants to put results first, and the world wants to put winning first. Yeah. And believe me, I am a competitive dude. Yeah. I want to put that first, but I know that it's not. It's not the most important thing. It's the growth mindset that really matters. Yeah. Rob and I were very different. He was an introvert. And I was out there, and my client relationships were turning into friendships, and my clients were asking me to be in their weddings, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm helping grow this business. I think I'm ready for ownership. And so I tried to make ownership work there, but he didn't want to, and I said, well, then I'm going to go do it for myself.
And how old were you at that point when you decided?
I was 33 then.
33.
Okay.
And
what was going on through this growth, this rapid growth phase of your life professionally?
Yeah. So I was still pretty much a hot mess. I was a weekend warrior, man. I would work real hard during the week, and then I'd still kind of go and be consumptuous on the weekend.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that led me into an unhealthy relationship that, is as much pain as it caused. It actually was the very thing that was setting me up for my conversion. Yeah. And a person's spiritual conversion is absolutely, hands down, the most powerful thing that'll ever happen. Mm. It's more than information or words. It's an experience, and it's undeniable. And so it was through serious failure, abnormal failure, that I re-anchored my spiritual life around the person Jesus.
I think one of the things that as a believer I have to combat all the time from non-believers is this God you believe in. If he's real, how could he allow these things to happen?
Oh, yeah.
How could he allow these terrible, painful things to happen?
Yeah.
And you said it earlier, it takes us at that next phase to look back to recognize what our God, what this God that we believe in, what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
The shaping and, a hard, very hard, painful relationship, and what that turned out to. And I just think of, okay, what is the trickle effect from that too, right? That conversion that you went through.
Yeah.
How many people has that reached? I mean, we were talking before, with John Kitna and the impact that you're making within a community of CEOs, and whether it's just interacting or speaking or whatever it is, and then your own organization, but because of something very painful, man, I mean, how beautiful is that our God can do that?
That's vesseling is what I refer to it. You know, it's God working through a person. But that very question I've actually sought out, and I think I can take a crack at explaining it. And these aren't my words; these are just things that I've learned along the way. But love is the supreme ethic. God is the source of all love. And if he made it some kind of mechanical response where he was in control and we were puppets, it wouldn't work. We wouldn't be freed to love. It'd be God controlling everything. And I think that's a real subtle difference that a non-believer doesn't really understand. And then, for me, my conversion came when I realized that I couldn't orchestrate my own forgiveness. That the evil that I had done, there was no way to clean it up. How was I going to be freed from the bondage of a failed marriage and all the awful things that happened? And that's when I realized that my salvation had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with what Christ did for me. He died to prove that he was love. Gosh. And it's through him that real freedom comes. Real freedom.
And that's huge. That point is, it doesn't come from me, right? I don't have to earn my freedom. I don't have to. And in life, right? Because in life, we feel the bondage when we try to do it on our own, and we feel like everything is on our shoulders. And I used to have this conversation with Arian Foster, running back in the Houston Texans. And I say this because I'd say this if he was here too, but we used to have very, very deep conversations. Justin Forsett, thank God that he was there, because I had some backup.
He was your mediator?
I had some backup. But he was a very, very vocal atheist, right? But he was very intelligent. I mean, he'd read the Bible cover to cover multiple times, and every single thing that you say, he had a counterpoint to, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, one that I couldn't ever, look, there's really not a counter to is I said, hey, listen, man, do you feel like you are in control of everything? I mean, do you feel like what you do dictates eternity? He's like, yeah. I was like, isn't that heavy? Isn't that a lot to carry? Because if you believe that Christ died and the only person that's ever conquered death, if he has already done what I could not, then it's up to me just to love other people, right? The pressure is gone, right? And yes, do we strive for greatness? Yes, do we push? Yes, do we grow? Yes, do we do all these things?
Right.
But to say, hey, my freedom is already earned, I mean, that burden is gone. And that's just that. And I recognize that later in life too. I was 27.
Okay.
And just the lightness of life from there. I mean, I'm not saying it's always easy. Right?
Yeah.
And he never says
it's hard. Life is messy. I'm a messy person, man. I have a lot of old wounds and trauma, and God made me a certain way. I have a definite disorder when it comes to fight or flight. I just don't. I think it's like in my Scottish heritage, you know, like I'm just meant to fight.
Yeah.
But you know, you get smarter about knowing what the fight is that you're really fighting.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So
I was just say, so you're 33.
Yeah.
You have this conversion. You start to get your life back together personally.
33. I start my business. 3 months into it, I start my divorce. 3 months later, I have a guy die on one of my jobs.
Oh my gosh.
This is 2007. Takes 18 months, and it cost about $1 million to get divorced, and I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. So everything I made,
and all the while, now it's 2008. Great time for construction, right? Especially
right now, like it's going good, and then all of a sudden I get divorced in August of 2008. I got a payout, and the economy just slides right off a cliff. And so, you know, I think, you know, we were talking earlier about normal problems and abnormal problems, and you know, like I had a lot of abnormal ones happen right at the beginning, but you know, I was being transformed too, and just that servant's heart took over, you know. And I'd tell people, hey, I'm not too proud to do anything. I'll mow your lawn, I'll wash your windows, I'll do whatever. I'll put in a door or change a light switch, and we were small and lean, and the world was dealing with all the pressure, and we had one way to go, and we were going there.
So talk to us how you got through that time, because I was in a position in 2008. I was still in school. I was totally oblivious to what was going on. I had $25 in my account at any point. So the economy being bad meant nothing to me.
Isn't that funny? You felt free to only have $25, and now you have more zeros than that, and you're like thinking it's all going to go away, right?
So my point in saying that is I was oblivious back then, but now 2022, we're starting to head to some scary times.
Yeah.
How did you get through that, especially in the construction business where it relies on a strong economy?
Yeah.
And you're going through a divorce. I mean, you've got so much going on. You've got as much going on as anybody at that time.
Yeah.
How did you get through that?
Golly,
I told you guys we won the Super Bowl this weekend.
Yeah.
And
which we're going to spend a significant amount of time on that topic.
Yeah.
In a little bit.
And one of my players broke his hand right before. And so, you know, the pep talk, you know how good it is to win a game for someone?
Yeah.
You know how good it is to have 2 kids that you want to fight for? That was my motivation.
Oh, man.
And I got custody of my twin boys. And I felt like the world that they would go into when I let them go to their moms was pretty scary. Now, she thought I was pretty scary too.
Right.
But something really powerful happened in my faith walk there where I realized God doesn't have any grandchildren. And the hardest thing as a parent to realize is that God loves them more than you do. You know, if you want to encourage a non-believer, if they have kids, I think that's the softest and easiest place.
Yeah.
Did you make that kid? I can show you a picture of my daughter 3 days after conception, and it's 16 cells that end up becoming the retina of your eye. And I go, there's no way. God's in creation, and he's in everything, and he's good. He's good. And so I had to trust that God loved my kids more than I did.
That's a very hard realization. Right? You've spent their entire life providing for them, feeding them, protecting them, clothing them.
Yeah.
And then to recognize that somebody loves them more than you do.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
It's unfathomable.
Yeah.
It's a giant leap of faith.
Yeah.
So for you during that time, it was all faith. It was all, I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
The only way I'm getting through this is through help and through God's help.
And a lot of help, a lot of therapy, and a lot of family, and a lot of people going, you know, like, dude, we got you. You can do this. And just that warrior mentality too, you know.
What about conversations with your dad at this time?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because my dad and I actually talked about starting the business together, and we wrote a business plan, and I said, hey, I'm going to go do my part of the business, which was doing the finish out. And so my parents at the time when around this time they moved back from Chicago to the Hill Country, and so we spent a lot of time at the lake and just nestled up around family. Yeah. I think my dad was really grateful to see that I was getting counseling, Christian counseling, and that I was starting in a small group to study the Bible and really kind of think about what mattered.
Yeah. So he was less worried about the professional side of it.
Yeah.
Which he knew that side of it very well. Right. And more concerned with the heart part of it.
And dude, all that wisdom, he had been through cycles before. I kind of tell people, like, I haven't been through any cycles really because it's just gone up for me the whole time. Yeah. My professional development went from minimum wage to start my own company. And the world went down, but I went up through it. And then the world came back and then I took off.
So the business was doing well.
4 million, 6 million, 8 million, 9 million, 10 million, and then it went 12, 25, 35, 55, 75, 100, 250, 350 million.
Wow. So you didn't see the rough, you were starting the business, that's rough, but the world, the economy at the time didn't necessarily affect the growth of your business.
Yeah. Or did you just not recognize it? Because it was, okay, hey,
it might have been that I was leaning into all the suck,
Right.
It was just a lot of perseverance, and I just was in the, I was in the 3-point stance or whatever you say,
And it feels like you were created and groomed, right, with your personality, your outgoing personality, your ability to connect to people, right? You were groomed really to thrive in that environment. When others kind of hid back, it's like, no, I'm going to go take it. I've got the courage, I've got the charisma, I've got all these things.
And almost nothing to lose. That was the good timing part. Yeah. That was the good timing part for me.
Yeah.
It'd be different if I was a developer and I had all my chips out on the table and, banks were calling.
Yeah.
Which feels like that's more like what could be happening now. I'm not totally sure. I'm still, other than Vladimir Putin, in the war that's going on, which is just, I just feel so naive. I just can't believe that there's that much evil in the world and what's going on. You kind of wonder about these black swan things, and it's always been something weird that's really turned the economy off.
Yeah.
But man, I sure do love being in Texas.
Yeah.
I love being in Dallas, Texas. It's, I think, one of the best real estate environments in the world.
Yeah.
And we have such a pro-business environment here, and that's not a political statement. Nope. It's just kind of businesses can thrive here, and so there's a lot of in-migration, and we've been the huge beneficiary of what's happened, I think, because of the pandemic, which is, I have a lot of sensitivity about talking about how good it's been for me because I know it's been really, really hard on other people, but I picked an asset type when I started my business 15 years ago that wasn't the bright and shiny object. Industrial finish out was like way over here.
Yeah.
And what's happened in 15 years in the industrial market space has been phenomenal. And I don't know, I felt like I could see it coming in a way, and I wanted to build my business different, and the way those two kind of came together created just a ton of momentum.
So a little clarity on what Greg's talking about right now, just for those that aren't in the real estate world. So when he says industrial finish out, industrial are warehouses. Think warehouses, right? So anybody where they're doing distribution of goods, manufacturing, things like that, and the other sectors are office. So office buildings, everybody knows what those are, and then retail buildings, right?
Yep.
Those are the three main, and then you got multifamily in that sector. And Gordon Highlander really focuses on industrial and office. Those are the two main, and
we're doing shell construction now, so not just finish out, but we're doing the shell on the industrial side. Yes. So those are our three pillars. But
office and industrial, the two real sectors that you spend your time on. So just a little context, because I know sometimes I'll even talk to my wife, who's now been a part of the real estate industry for a long time, say, what are you talking about?
Yeah, most people like me, when I ask literally, what is commercial real estate? That was my first question.
Oh, yeah.
When I started, I walked in.
Yeah, when I
like,
started,
Darren, what's commercial real estate?
What is this? No, but
It's not residential.
It is not residential. All right, I want to take a quick minute to talk about our partner, Choctaw Casino and Resort. We are really, really humbled and grateful to be a partner for them. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard how great the resort is there, how great the casino is, the new expansion. They've doubled in size, 3,000 new slots. They've got unbelievable sports bar. They've got unbelievable restaurants, unbelievable movie theaters, arcades for kids. It is endless, the things that they've not only improved but added. But it's just the experience that they provide is second to none. Choctaw Nation has done an incredible job with the community, with philanthropy, with support. They have just done incredible things. So we are extremely humbled and grateful to partner with Choctaw Casino and Resort. Make sure, I know you know it, but it's just a short drive up 75. Go check them out. And now back to the episode.
I do want to go back to the early times. That's how you said I stuck my head down and I just worked. That's how you led through the rough economy times.
Yeah.
What about when things were really booming?
Yeah.
How do you lead then? Does your leadership change? Because it's really easy when things are good to start settling a little bit.
Yeah.
And start thinking, I've got it made.
Yeah.
So how did that dynamic change for you and your business?
So I'm maturing in all different ways now. The economy's starting to really hum, and I would talk to my team about just the experience that the client would have being a servant leader and having a servant's heart, and it being more than just the words. It's in the actions and everything we do, right? But we didn't have a mission statement. We didn't have core values. We didn't have those things kind of anchored into the business. I actually pushed against them. I didn't want to write things on the wall that someone else had printed off about courage or integrity. I wanted it to be ours, and then I didn't want it to become a weapon. I didn't want people to use it against me.
Yeah.
And so about 2016 is when I really started to kind of realize this is pretty legit, but what I see are the people. I love the people. And although I build very, very important things, again, the little teeny adjustment, it's the people that matter. And so we codified our mission statement in 2017 to build a legacy of helping others reach their God-given potential. And then we came up with our core values: steadfast, courageously authentic, for others, band of brothers and sisters, and results. And we wrote the definitions to all of them. And I started teaching the mission statement to every employee. And so the most important thing that I do is I start to lay that cultural foundation into the business. And I teach people right away about their orientation. There's a famous guy, look him up. His name is John Boyd. He was a Top Gun instructor, and his nickname was 42nd Boyd. And his nickname was because he would bet every one of the pilots that he taught that 40 seconds after they had him locked down, he would get out of position and take them out. And he was an absolute maverick. I love stories about mavericks, right? Yeah. I love the great athlete stories, the great coaching stories, and all the anecdotal stuff that comes from that. But Boyd gave me a gift, and he gave the world a gift. He was actually able to write it down and explain it. And they taught it, and it's a military concept. It's called the OODA loop. And OODA is observe, orient, decide, and act. And so he says that in decision-making, the only place that you have to be able to change or make a difference is in your orientation. And I just invite people on their cultural orientation day, think of this not like a class, but a conversation that you're going to have with me forever. And if I could put one question into your head today, and that was all that we left with, it would be, what is the Gordon Highlander way? We were talking about this earlier about how much you love to ask questions. See, I believe that the power is in the question. The answer is less powerful. And that's a part of the mind shift. You know Lombardi's thing, this is a football? Yeah. He starts every season off, this is a football. Mm-hmm. He's inviting his team to start getting ready for how he's going to teach their mind. Yeah. It's not that they don't understand that it's a football, right? Yeah. And so I just tell people, like, in your orientation, your past experiences, your DNA, your feelings, what about this one? This is a real hard one for the world right now. Your biases. Mm-hmm. We have so many default biases, and they're known. You could go study them. Yeah. Well, the most miraculous one that I bump into all the time in my faith walk, we judge other people by their worst mistakes. Yep. We judge ourselves by our best intentions. Yeah. And I just try to get people to kind of understand that they have an orientation, and that's where you build doctrine in a way. Yeah. And if they can just ask themselves, what's the Gordon Highlander way? Then we can meet them there. Yeah. Right? And that's the real powerful connection. I put my name on my business, and there's literally millions of decisions that get made every day with my name on my business. Yeah. Yes. It's really important. Yes. If something went wrong, I would be down at the court steps. You know?
That's an interesting perspective. That makes total sense. But for whatever reason, the way you just said that hit me in a different way. Yeah. That you have all these people as a representative of your name, and developing them really is the most important thing, and those people are the most important thing. That makes so much sense. Like, it made sense, but for whatever reason, that just hit me in a different way.
And so we make huge investments in our people. That's the most important thing. And then, you know, what's funny is my dad, he goes, I told him about the mission statement. He goes, no. I go, what? And he goes, it doesn't say anything about construction. And I said, yes, it does, Dad. It says to build. And so I do this thing, this little memorization trick with everyone. Build what? Build a legacy. And I go, let me invite you into a deeper part of my heart. You know, what do you hear when you hear the word legacy, right? Yeah. What is it? Emote. What do you think of? Family, eternity, all these things. A legacy of what? Helping others. And I tell people about Jesuit and being a man for others. And then the most important part, reaching your God-given potential. That's a hard thing to talk about. That's a hard thing to wrestle down to the ground. And so I just go first and confess, and I say, you guys, if I'm not careful, I let my self-worth fall into the trappings of what other people think of me and how hard I work. But I forget that I'm made in God's image, and I'm invaluable. To him, I'm invaluable. And I look at every single one of my employees, and I let them know, you're invaluable. You're invaluable to me. The world talks about employees like they're replaceable. And I go, you know, I had one guy tell me one day, he's like, man, I just hire the best people for every position in every firm. I go, dude, with all due respect, you know, I think we're trying to get to the same spot, but bullshit. Yeah. I'm trying to bring out the best in people. You know, there's just a subtle little difference there. And I think it's really important in being successful.
One thing that I love, and you've hit on this over and over, but even just prior to this conversation and talking with your team and working with your team, is that, like you said, you have a conversation with someone. I'm not preaching to you. I'm not lecturing you on how to do it. This is a conversation. Because if you're building a team and you're saying, hey, Ben, you need to do it exactly how I say to do it, how well is Ben going to be being Greg? Yeah. He's not going to be very good at it. You allow your team, you say, okay, hey, you know, like you said, your God-given ability, reach that potential.
Yes, their gifts are different than mine, right?
And that's why you're here, is because you bring a different gift from a different perspective. We just want to grow that. And you allow your people to recognize that. And yes, there's a mission that we're all moving in the same direction, but you allow them to lean on their strengths, allow them to ask for help where they're maybe weak, where they need some assistance. And that's what I love. And I feel like those are the organizations that are going to continue to rise and that are going to continue to adjust and continue to thrive in this ever-changing times that we're in.
Yeah.
Because if you say, hey, this is who we are, and we're on a straight line, and this is how we work, right? Because this is how I say it is.
Yeah.
I mean, how fast do you get derailed on that?
Oh, yeah.
And so I just love that. And that was one of the things we were really excited about bringing you on and just talking through the leadership approach and as opposed to building a product.
Yeah.
Because your brand is a product, right?
Yeah.
And your delivery is the product that you deliver is the finished.
Yeah, but how do you
build-out.
get it to speak for who you are, right? How do you do that? And it's like I figured out I couldn't swing a hammer faster than anyone else, but I could love people differently.
That's right.
And one of the hardest parts in leadership, I think, is when you sit back and you kind of watch it start to happen, these beautiful juxtapositions occur. Someone isn't getting it. There's conflict. A client's not happy. You know, and it's just such a privilege to be able to show up in those really tough spots and try to love people through that, man.
Yeah.
A lot of times the different side to the same coin.
Yeah.
You know, like I got a guy, my CSO, super strategic, but when he's overworked, he's not very empathetic.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just helping people kind of understand themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fascinating what stress can do. It can change anybody.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with stress when times get overwhelming for you? How do you handle that?
Well, I told you I use my sense of humor to make up for my low IQ, right? and so right now my filter's going up because I want to say something really bad.
There's that maturity that we've been talking about.
Oh, easy killer. Yeah. You know what's funny is I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, and there's this wonderful book called The Road Back to You, and it's a spiritual overlay on the Enneagram, and my deadly sin is gluttony. And so what usually happens for me first when I'm stressed out is I seek pleasure. I just want to anesthetize the discomfort, you know?
Yep.
But I think, you know, through making a lot of mistakes there, your self-awareness grows, and you kind of know, like, hey, wait a minute, I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontent. And like, what's going on? And then just learning how to hold the tension, just the binding and loosening that comes from going, okay, something is telling me that this isn't right. But in the past, I went and tried to blow doors open and use my impulsivity and my gut and all these instincts that I think are so great, and I've hurt people unintentionally. And just holding the tension and then waiting and just petitioning, show me when and how I'm supposed to address this issue.
Gosh, like the patience on that.
Yeah.
One of the things that, and you know, we'll wrap up here pretty quickly, but you know, one of the things that you mentioned is the important thing is how you make people feel, and we talk about it all the time. You know, as real estate advisors, brokers, whatever you want to call us, is we may knock a transaction out of the park. We may put you in the best building and the best deal and what are they going to remember? They're going to remember how they felt through the process, and typically who makes them feel one way or the other is the general contractor on what the final product is. Because what they remember is they remember what that stress was at the very end of the project. And so, you know, yes, like that's a professional example of it, but that's across the board is what people really are going to remember. You talk about legacy is what people are going to remember you by is how you made them feel. And there's all these cliche quotes out there and, you know, whatever, but it really truly is. And when you address the person and not the product, that is a winning recipe. And that to me is a reason that the successful people, and I'm not saying from a monetary materialistic, the people that can, hey, look, my main concern, and yes, I've got to deliver something. My main concern is how I treat you, how I react with you. I'm dealing with some stuff at the house right now with some contractors.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm just sitting there thinking, and I'm scratching my head on a call with some of these contractors. I'm like, you have realized how easy that this could be solved.
Dude, you were dealing with these calls when we were here 8 weeks ago.
Yes.
Ooh, baby,
but they figured it out, and they made me, and it was, we got that worked out.
Yeah.
And I'm looking back, but even on smaller scales, it's like, okay, like if you're telling the customer that they're wrong and they're not responsible and they're this and it's somebody else's fault, it's like, really easily, this could be solved if you just made me feel like
you cared.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you're going through that.
Yeah.
I want to do everything within my power to make this right, because it's important that, and it's just crazy to me. It's like the simplest things, but like how important it is to treat people in a way that they feel like they feel important.
Yeah.
Whether it's your own team or it's a customer.
Yeah.
Whoever it is you interact with. And I mean, that's across the board, whether it's somebody at the convenience store, whether it's somebody at the grocery, how you make people feel is important. How you treat people is important. And I think our world could be very different if we had that mindset.
Yeah. You know what's great? I'll try to wrap this up.
No, I wasn't rushing you. That wasn't what we were trying to do.
And I just see how all these things overlap. That's just my little dyslexic brain, It's like, so, I got this chance to coach my kids, and I hadn't done it before, and I told my buddies I would do it as long as everyone came together. And then I said, hey, I need someone to coach offense and someone to coach defense, and we're eight-year-old kids. And so some of my buddies are looking at me like, dude, you don't know what you're doing. And I go, no, I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about football. So first week, I teach the kids mindset.
Yeah.
Hey, this has to do with your mindset. Second week, you're going to have mistakes, and it's okay. Who knows how to take ownership? My bad. Okay? Next week, we're in there, and I go, this was right after the NFL, excuse me, what's the game before the Super Bowl?
The conference championship.
Yeah,
NFC, AFC championship.
Never seen anything like it. And I said, boys, do you know what that is? That's people believing that they can win.
Yeah.
Right? And then the next week, my son had his best game, but a young kid on the team that hadn't caught a ball yet had a breakthrough. He was more excited for his teammate. So then we started talking about teamwork.
Yeah.
And how important it is. If you get everyone on a team to rise up, it's one of the most powerful things.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was just so wonderful to get to do all this. Yeah. Last little thing was, don't be afraid to be great. Yeah. And so we make it to the Super Bowl. Whit breaks his arm. We play the game for Whit. And I'm sitting there watching him encourage another player the same way I tried to encourage him. And I realized that's the greatest gift in this. That's the real magic for me in either being the CEO or a father or a coach. I want to be inspirational, but I want people to be inspired and do something with it, right? And so the most amazing part of the Gordon Highlander story isn't me. It's the people that believe in what we build. And when I get to watch them do the work, that's the real beauty in all of it.
That's amazing. Yeah. I don't know how else to follow that up.
I was going to say that's probably the best lesson we can take away and wrap it up with that is, I love what you just said. You want to inspire them to inspire each other.
That's the force multiplier.
Yes.
Great leaders know how to make other great leaders.
Yes.
It's not managing people, it's inspiring them and motivating them. And the hardest part, I believe, is trusting that my real first-person authentic story is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good because...
Authentic. Keyword, authentic
story. Yeah. Got to rumble, man.
Yeah. And that's what I love. Every conversation that I've had with you, that I've been lucky enough to have with you, is, listen, I'm not going to hide the things that I've struggled with. I'm not going to hide the things that I'm still struggling with. I'm going to be authentic, and that is how you connect with people. And we've only been able to interact a few times, but just my perception of relationship closeness with you just because of your authentic transparency. But I mean, also, you know, you're just joy that kind of just radiates out of you too, you know. It's important. And I encourage people not to always have this Instagram personality, right? Not the highlight reel. Because people want to know you. People want to get to know you, and they want to do life with you. Yeah. Like don't be so afraid to be transparent about the things that are hard, things that are good. Like you said, don't be afraid don't feel guilty for being great.
Yes. What's that?
Yeah. And I think that's part of a pandemic that we're going through as well, is your shame for being great. And there's nothing wrong with it wanting and working to be great, and there's nothing wrong with achieving greatness.
No.
It's just, what are you going to do with that greatness?
Yeah, does it become your idol? Yeah. Is it your identity, you know? Yeah, well, dude, I feel the same kindred spirit, you know? I'm grateful to be on the podcast with you guys, and
it's so fun.
Thanks for allowing me to share.
No, thank you for your wisdom. I mean, there are so many gold nuggets, and going back and listening to this, because it's clear that you love people.
Yeah.
And that's one of your best attributes. Just knowing you for the little bit I've known you is just how much you truly, like, everybody says it. People say how important people are, but I can feel it when you say it. You love people.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Really Thanks for coming. My wife likes to joke about it. You know, honey, let's not go to the club tonight for dinner. Why? Because everyone's going to come over here and give you a hug. We won a job recently, and the older guy called me, and he goes, if I hear about how much people love you one more time.
Hey, there's a lot worse they could say about you, right?
I know, right?
Exactly. So
That's
true.
awesome.
So
Well, thanks
true.
for your time, man. Thank you for coming.
Again, Greg Gordon Highlander. And so if you are a company out there, that if you are going through a move, and you need to build out a space, or you've got a warehouse, you've got to build it out, or, hey, I need a new warehouse built, Gordon Highlander unequivocally is the first call that you need to make.
Thank you.
They have bailed us out of multiple
Construction is really
challenges.
messy, isn't it?
But they will, what you heard on the podcast today, the team at Gordon Highlander will make your client feel that way. And so, and again, that's a testament to the leadership, you and your leadership team.
That's right.
And what you guys are instilling there. And so, again, Gordon Highlander, if you are in Texas, got to be your first call.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But thank you, Greg, so much for the time. We appreciate it. And I hope y'all can go out there, take some of this, and just love on someone. Be authentic and just love on someone. Yep. Because that's
we need it right now.
We need it.
Yeah,
we
the
need
world is a
right
broken
now.
place, and people are really struggling. I mean, that's a real
Well,
deal.
we're scared. We're unsure. We don't know what's happening. We need each other.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Love everyone.
Okay.
See you next time.